Hi, good afternoon. We're here to discuss illegal immigration and whether there is a problem with it. Laura, what are your thoughts on illegal immigration? Do you think there is a problem?
Yes, there definitely is. The majority staff report issued by the House Committee on Homeland Security said that not all illegal aliens are crossing the border to find jobs, that there is a criminal element there. In a recent CNN report issued in 2014, it documented over 30,000 undocumented criminals. And then of that 30,000, 121 were later charged with homicide.
Sarah, what are your thoughts on that?
I think I agree with the Screen Morning News out of Salt Lake City, which states there's a misconception that it's our Christian duty to ignore the infractions of our laws, the taxpayers' expensive social programs to illegals, and the true victims whose identities are stolen to support the illegal immigration. Also, Solutions 2014 states that one of the federal government's core responsibilities is to control our borders and who enters the United States. He also states through Solutions 2014 that the government has consistently failed at this, leading to today's untenable situation with over 11 million individuals unlawfully present in the U.S.
That is Mike, do you think there is a problem with illegal immigration and crime?
Oh, definitely. There's definitely a problem, and it's not just a lot of people think just Mexico. You know, there's illegal immigration from Canada, other different countries, but obviously the main focus is Mexico. And Tim Kaine, he was a news reporter. He said illegal immigration in the United States is a massive scale, and more than 10 million undocumented aliens are currently in the United States, and that is as of 2013, and the number is saying to grow exponentially each year, and up by 700,000 per year. So there is definitely a large issue with illegal immigration in the United States.
I think I agree with you all. In my research, I also found that from the Federation of Immigration Reform in 2015, it says that each year the Border Patrol apprehends hundreds of thousands of aliens who flagrantly violate our nation's laws by unlawfully crossing those borders. So the first thing they're doing by crossing our borders is breaking the law. So we've defined the problem. So how do you think we need to define legal immigration? Do you think that there's certain terminology? Do you all understand what it is?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think it's just defined as an immigrant coming through our nation illegally without verification through our government.
Laura?
One thing I did find is that ICE is mentioned frequently, and it is a part of the Department of Homeland Security created on March 1st, and it's Immigration and Customs Enforcement.
Now, I found that when I looked up the definition for illegal immigrant, it includes different things. The illegal alien population is composed of those who illegally enter the country, as it's those who enter illegally and stay over their visas. So they came legally and overstayed, some of it for many years. And the immigration requires the currently estimated 2/3 to 3/5 of all illegal immigrants are EWIs, which is they came entry without inspection, and the remainder are overstayers. This is according to the Federation of Immigration Reform in 2015 as well. Both types of illegal immigrants, according to them, are deportable under Immigration Nationality Act, Section 237. So we see that there's other points to illegals besides just people who cross the border from Canada and Mexico, correct? Well, who do you think is harmed by the problem from the coming border?
Well, I think U.S. citizens are harmed. Legal immigrants are harmed. Frequently, U.S. citizens are a victim of crimes such as I read a CNN article recently about the killing of her last name is Scheidel. She was shot on the pier in San Francisco on July 3rd. Now this killing was an example of the many illegal immigrants that are committing violent crimes in the United States today.
That's a good point. That was the latest crime by an illegal immigrant we've seen on the news. What do you think about this, Sarah?
The Federation for American Immigration Reform, FAIR, says that illegal immigration causes substantial harm to American citizens and illegal immigrants, particularly those in vulnerable sectors of our population. For example, the poor, the minorities, and children. They also state later in an article that illegal immigrants cause enormous strain on public funds, and that the taxes paid by the immigrants do not begin to cover the cost of the services received by them.
What about you, Mike? Use your research match what the other two participants have said?
Yes, it does. And not only is it the immigrants themselves that are being harmed by just coming into this country and becoming criminals, they're harming themselves, but it is mostly the citizens of the United States. And Richard Jones, he's a sheriff of Butler County in Ohio, he agrees with this, and he says he knows of business owners that are local businesses that cannot compete with bidding processes with other businesses that are falsely hiring these illegal immigrants because they will work for less because they are illegal. So with that, it's harming the citizens of America, and it's harming the economy, and a lot of different aspects go in with illegal immigrants coming across the border.
That's a good point. We see that one individual crossing has a problem, or forms a problem that dominoes into all society. First, they're harming themselves, they're harming other immigrants that live in the communities, employment for legal immigrants, and for citizens of the United States. I did find the same thing. I believe that several parts are harmed by this problem, and that is the immigrants themselves. They become victims, and because of legal status, are themselves adverse to reporting crimes such as theft, robbery, sexual assault, and extortion within the immigrant community. Because of this, drug cartels take advantage of illegal immigrants, and according to Civitas, the Institute, in 2007 says, as for human smuggling, the U.S. House Committee on Homeland Security reports that any typical illegal alien pays between $1,200 and $2,500 to be taken across the border. They're being taken advantage of that way. Not infrequently, illegals pay back these fees by selling drugs once they get to America. So now they're being like an indentured servant. I owe these criminals in Mexico. Do you have any other thoughts on that, Laura?
Well, let's keep in mind that not all illegal immigrants are criminals, and also there was a recent raid at a Smithfield Boots in Layton County, Florida, and investigators found that 86% of the workers arrested for immigration violations had stolen identities from American from American citizens, and this information comes from the U.S. Attorney General George Holding.
Does anybody have any?
Addressing that, it says here also by Federation for American Immigration Reform that additionally job compensation by ways of illegal immigrants differ for any job unfairly depresses the wages and working conditions offered to American workers, again hitting hardest the minority workers and those without high school degrees. So even the people who are not criminals are still committing crimes.
Mike, do you have any other points that you want to add to that?
Yeah, it's just really unfortunate that we've got to go through this. And one thing, Kirk Johnson, he's a news reporter with Real Problem with Immigration. He goes on to talk about how businesses are now encouraging illegal immigration, because with that they save money and make more money just by paying less.
Yeah, I did find that in my research that not just the illegal immigrants are harmed, and the legal immigrants are harmed, but the American citizens harmed by the inadequate benefits and services paid for into the system. Even though illegal immigrants are paying into the system very slowly, they take more out of the welfare system than what is being paid into it. And this is almost like a lamprey attaching itself to a shark. You know, it's sucking away its life force. And what's going to happen is all that money for schools, crime fighting, and road repair, emergency all that stuff mathematically will not be able to be reimbursed, because you can't have such a small percentage of the population paying into that when a larger population is drawing away from it. In my research, I found that Waldo Benavidez from Defend Colorado website in 2006 says, many illegal immigrants with fake social security cards, like you mentioned, Laura, are working in just about every kind of employment there is. They are not picking beets and cleaning toilet bowls. They are in state jobs, public school systems, fast food industry, construction, building trades, the hotel industry. In fact, he says the list is endless.
Yep.
So we see there is a problem. We define who the illegal immigrant is, and we see the harm it causes. Now, when does the harm occur? Let's start with you, Sierra. When do you think harm occurs first?
Brett Bart correspondent Caroline May states that, broken down by some of the primary offenses, illegal immigrants represent 16.8% of drug trafficking cases, 20% of kidnapping and hostage taking, 74.1% of drug possession, 12.3% of money laundering, and 12% of murder convictions. It's a large amount of convictions.
Let's go back to what do you think?
When harm occurs, well, here's a statistic for you. A study by Dr. Kaufman concluded that there are approximately 240,000 illegal immigrant sex offenders in the United States. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICA, runs a special program called Operation Predator and targets foreign nationals who commit sex crimes against children. To date, more than 10,000 individuals have been arrested through this ICE initiative, resulting in more than 5,500 deportations.
My statistics were the exact same thing. In fact, I read that article as well when I was looking over this program. I also found that my statistics also said that the fiscal costs of illegal immigration are so high that according to the Center for Immigration Studies, in 2002, illegal alien households costs were exceeding $26 billion. But on the federal government, they only paid $16 billion into the program. So statistically, they're drawing away more, thereby creating a net fiscal deficit of $10.4 billion, which has to be spread among legal immigrants and illegal immigrants, which means $2,700 per household in the United States that is here, born here, has to pay for those benefits beyond what they pay for themselves. Mike, did you have anything that you thought?
Oh yeah, harm occurs every time an illegal immigrant comes into this nation. It's affecting our nation's growth, which isn't good economically. Something by Foundation AI, which is AILF.org. They specialize in immigrants undermining our nation's security. They were saying the main problems caused with illegal immigration is loss of jobs, stolen from taxpayers' money, and terrorism. And that's becoming an issue with illegal immigrants coming across the border.
Do you think, Mike, that if, since there is a problem, we're seeing the causes of the problem, what would happen if the problem wasn't solved?
Well, obviously, our economy would shut down. It would really depend on how many immigrants come into this nation. There are some good things out of it, more resources that can be applied because there's more workers to do the job, but that's also taking away from American workers. So,
do you have any thoughts, Laura, about what might happen if the problem is never solved?
I think, drug cartels, just crime, violence in general would escalate if we're not able to secure our borders. Federal investigators believe that as much as 2.2 million kilograms of cocaine and 11.6 kilograms of marijuana were smuggled into the United States just through the Mexican border in 2005 alone. So this is something we definitely have to get a handle on. It's an epidemic problem, I know in Arizona, property crimes have increased. And another big issue is like Arizona and certain border states have had to assume a large cost and responsibility for controlling immigration because just the numbers are so large.
We have many more points to get through here, so we need to move on quickly. Sierra, what do you think will happen if the problem are not solved?
According to Numbers USA, as well, we're speaking about the growth numbers. Although its frontiers were declared close to a century ago, the United States today is adding population at a numerical level just under the phenomenal baby boom, which is far exceeds all other periods of U.S. population growth. And it concludes with the population of America will surpass 570 million by 2100.
That is a large amount.
Yes, sir.
That's going to happen very soon, within 6 years. I think we've seen who has the problem, where the problem's coming from, what happened if the problem wasn't solved.
I have another point. The U.S. would become a dumping ground for the world, for their criminals.
We need to, in your comments before, we saw how bad the problem is. I mean, that kind of got wrapped up in what the harm would do. So, what do you think would happen if, with a history of the problem, where did this come from?
I think it came from just the thoughts of the immigrants wanting a better life, and that's obviously not the whole reason behind why they come to America, just because they want a better life. That's a large misconception of what Americans think, but I do think that is one of the reasons.
Sierra?
The history of the problem, for example, during the early 1900s, the Great Wave of Immigration, which began in 1880, but exploded in the early 1900s. And then we saw, just a couple decades later, that World War I slowed it down. But then once the country became, once the country became richer and stable, more stable, that we started hitting records. After World War II in 1945, immigration grew back towards traditional levels, and Americans began to create very large families. This is according to, again, Numbers USA.
That's a very good point to make about World War I and World War II. Part of that was from, there was more protection on the borders because they were afraid of German and Italian spies getting into the borders. So they naturally made an influx along the Canadian border to make sure that didn't happen. Of course, with that, more border protection, more people out there, then there was less illegal immigration across.
Let's bring that current too. The 2014 Obama administration issued an executive action to protect nearly 5 million immigrants from deportation. So that's where we are today.
That's what we're dealing with. The problem when it's a problem already. That's true. I found in my research that according to Peter Gemma from the Constitution Online political website that tracks this problem in our nation, that the 2012 illegal population in the United States, based on the Pew Research Centers, is estimated 11.7 million, up from a recent low of 11.3 million. Since 1990, the illegal alien population has more than tripled and shows no sign of slowing. That's exactly what you said, Mike, earlier, when it's almost like a domino effect. You have one small domino, the next domino is a little bit larger, so it's going to come to a point where our country can't handle the influx, where to put them, and how to give them jobs, how to feed them, and actually draw away from our welfare. What do you think the causes of this problem are? Is it we have people are coming just for the freedoms, and then they don't find the freedoms here, and they start committing crimes, or what do you think?
Well, okay, go ahead.
One thing that I looked at is if you look at the FBI statistics reported by CNN of the actual immigrant, the ratio between immigrants and U.S. citizens that are in jail, the percentage of criminals is actually low when you compare it to the United States population and those that are incarcerated there also. There's no real clear-cut statistics as to how many are illegal. So it's a touchy subject. It depends on who you ask about the problem, and it depends on what numbers you look at.
Yeah, William Green, with the history of illegal immigration, the history and the causes of this, it goes back way before this current time, just when we were getting into it. I know 1892, Ellis Island opened, and that became one of the first spots for illegal immigration for when we started moving all of the illegal immigrants there. And it started with the Chinese that were immigrating over here, and in 1965, the Illegal Immigration Nationality Act was implemented, and that's when it really started to go.
Christian Science Monitor is polled 35 million people in Mexico, and they said 1 in 3 Mexicans were willing to move El Norte, willing to move north, and that's many of the reasons were because of the safety of America and how not just the jobs, but we are a more safe environment.
Right, that's very true. I found some of the causes were poor border patrol, contradictory national regulations on deportation, and this can be found according to Peter Gemma from the Constitution Party, when he says that this latest directive from the Obama administration issued the latest in a line of policy records granting amnesty by default. So like I believe Laura said earlier, almost 5 million were given amnesty, which causes part of the problem. Okay, they're coming over and nothing's been done to send them back. Now let's kind of wrap this up with what is being done to solve the problem and what we might be some of those methods.
Well, currently there was an act that was put out that's called the DREAM Act, and it's basically a limited amnesty provision. It's basically an act that is set forth before amnesty actually occurs and is given to illegal immigrants.
Sarah, what do you think?
So, according to USA News, nationwide the population of unauthorized immigrants is 11.2 million, which is a terrible problem. Most recently, as of January of this year, President Obama pressed Mexico's president on Tuesday to work towards, this is 01/06/15, on Tuesday to work alongside the U.S. government to prevent new surge of illegal immigrants. So Obama, this is from Justin Sink for The Hill. Obama is attempting to speak with the Mexican president.
Laura, can you give me a short example of what you think might solve the problem?
CNN reports that the U.S.-Mexico border remains an obvious weak link in the chain. We've tightened security at airports and land ports in the wake of 9/11, and we also need to secure our borders.
I think securing the borders is a great thing. I think some of the things that people have been doing across the United States have not led to solving the problem. And one of those was, according to Peter Gemma from the Constitution Party, was places like Baltimore and San Francisco making their areas into sanctuary cities. He says Baltimore's mayor signed an order officially converting the city into a sanctuary for illegal immigrants. This means that they can come across. So instead of helping solve the problem, they're actually making this problem even worse.
Yeah.
I found that Border Patrol were given enough the weapons to protect themselves. In December 14, 2010, a Border Patrol, Brian Terry, was shot and killed by a illegal immigrant, according to Peter Gemma. And he was only carrying a shotgun that carried beanbags, whereas the two people who shot him were armed. The weapon that he carried was designed to deliver a blow that would briefly render a violent subject immobile. The two people who shot him were 2 AK-47s recovered at the scene from a failed Fast and Furious operation. So even though one part of that operation, the Fast and Furious part, was designed to try and maybe catch criminals but not immigrants, it actually ended up harming one of our own Border Patrol agents because they weren't carrying the required equipment.
Yeah. Gillian Silsby He's actually an expert on defense and for our nation, and he goes into talk about a lot of the same stuff you just said, and how that would be very beneficial to our country.
Now,
Okay,
lastly,
we need to pay attention to it.
Lastly, we need to look at the limitations to this. This is the last point, so we need to wrap it up quickly.
So William Gein states that the Immigration and National Act of 1965, Congress has passed 7 amnesties. The failure behind a lot of the reforms, according to Ira Stoll, who writes for Reason.com, states that the bipartisan nature of our country and how each part of Congress, there's Democrats and there's Republicans, part of those also create discombobulation within this country.
Laura, can you give me a short example of what limitations might be?
The limitations
Of the solving the problem.
solving the issue. At this point, it would be cooperation from the federal government.
Yeah, the editors from Bloomerville go and talk about Bloomerville.com. They talk about the limitations are the American people and not having the I guess the soul to be able to do something mean to another person, to another human being, and that would be one of the limitations.
I agree with this. I agree. We found the problem. We looked at how it caused harm. We tried to find solutions. Also find that, according to FAIR, the Federation for Immigration Reform again, that 3 major components of immigration control, deterrence, apprehension, and removal need to be strengthened by Congress and the executive branch support them. Guys, I think this was a great discussion.
Actually, I need to hear your solution.
Oh, the 3 solutions?
Yeah, I need to hear what you voted on.
Okay. All right.
We didn't have the people who presented each other to share that.
With that, please.
We, each of us really had a consensus. We really believe that very secure borders are necessary. Frank also supported the idea of aerial surveillance and surveillance. And also when I myself suggested that when illegals are apprehended, we deport them.
And by saying a much more secure border, it doesn't just mean just build a wall. That also means like video surveillance, more troops down there. Something Frank was talking about is having one man watching several cameras and then calling in Border Patrol. Do you want to get anything about that?
We also voted to enforce all welfare regulations so illegal immigrants do not come in and sign up for entitlements.
And my last solution was that we enforce all mandatory identification through government databases before any individual hires or corporation hires a citizen or legal immigrant, just to make sure they're not using stolen identities. And that program is called E-Verify, but is not being held to at this time.